You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
That stadium is going to be rocking, and heaven help whoever walks in there to play us.
Sustained effort and violence, you play your ass off.
You're watching the Pirate Preview on The Sports Objective. Join us every Tuesday night on YouTube Live as we're joined by beat writers and other media members as we take a look at what lies ahead for the Pirates. Now, here are the guys.
Here it is, a first down. Pirates.
Welcome in to the Pirate Preview right here on the Sports Objective. A big game on Saturday as we go to Annapolis, Maryland. And Bubba, very excited, and Kyle, to have with us Pete Medhurst, the Navy play-by-play voice. Pete, one of our favorite guests. Welcome back to the show.
Always good to be with you guys. Appreciate it.
No doubt. I need to get an apartment or something in the DMV, by the way. I'm a Commander's season ticket holder. I forgot to tell you that in the green room. So I've been traveling to Washington a lot recently in Maryland.
That's a pretty good hike. I've done that, obviously. I drove last time we played at East Carolina. I drove to the game. But on a Sunday, that's not a very friendly ride in terms of the traffic. So that might not be a terrible idea, at least find a room to rent between September and December.
And no doubt. Let's talk about Navy, East Carolina. And the guys we were talking about, we have the utmost respect for obviously you and the team, but it feels kind of like I don't think the right word would be a rivalry game, but we always love playing you guys. We talk about how special it is because of the Naval Academy. Do you have the right word for it? Rivalry is not the right word, but it's a game that we are always looking for each season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look in the league, first of all, we're about as close in terms of proximity. Maybe Temple technically is a little closer. But we got a little bit of lineage with you guys, playing you guys. We played you, even before we got in the American. So, and look, I mean, East Carolina's fans have always traveled well to Annapolis. They've always filled up sections 31 and 32 over there in that corner. And as I've told you all, I'm not. First of all, I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's a media that covers any team in the American better than East Carolina, between all the different podcasts, local TV stations, and stuff like that. I mean, you guys have as loyal a following media-wise and fan base-wise as anybody in the league. And, the games at times have been okay. Obviously the last time you guys were in Annapolis, when Daffer's kick would have been good from 70. He hit it so good in that game, even though it was from 54. At the gun. But, I think we've enjoyed coming down there. We recruit a lot of kids from North Carolina, and I think that's also part of it. We usually show up with a pretty good contingent of fans. We're down there in Greenville. So I don't expect anything more than a close game again between these two sides coming up here on Saturday.
Pete, before we dive into the game, obviously on Saturday in Annapolis, can you talk about, speaking of rivalries, probably one of the biggest rivalries in all the sports, Army coming into the American football only. Just want to get your take, being a Navy guy. What's your perspective on it?
I mean, our administration's been supportive of it. As soon as those discussions started, these discussions have gone on for a long time. It was just a matter of whether Army wanted to make the commitment. Navy has never stood in their way in terms of joining the American Athletic Conference. It was just always a matter of Army feeling comfortable in terms of doing it. But at some point, you got to entertain your fans. You can't play some of the teams that they've played and think that your fans are, excited about winning 2 1AA games a year. Because an independent, it's incredibly tough to schedule right now. It's even tougher to get people to come to your stadium when you're an independent. And some of the teams they play just, haven't been some of the best. Now they've gotten some guarantee games. They played a hell of a game out at Oklahoma a couple of years ago. So, Jeff's improved the product there tenfold from when he took it over. But at some point, look, their schedule is going to get 10 times better playing in the American. You're going to get some more entertaining teams. You're going to get better football games. And at some point, you got to entertain your fans, on the business side of it. And I think this, Army fits with all these teams in this league. They're not going to be overwhelmed by anybody. And because of what Jeff has done there, it's going to make the league better, I think, overall. And I know Navy is looking forward. And I think we all hope at some point there's an Army-Navy championship game in the American Athletic Conference.
Pete, I talked to you about it briefly before the show started about the Army-Navy game remaining on the second weekend of December. The game's going to be a non-conference game as Army joins the league. I know they have the TV contract with CBS. I hope at some point that changes. I know it's a tradition, and I respect the tradition. But to have that thing as a league game, particularly if we would go back to divisions, I mentioned to you perhaps play it on week 0. I know CBS doesn't want any competition, but it would still be the marquee game week 0. And I'm booking big picture things that are really not my business, but just from a neutral party that's not a fan of Army or Navy, but respects them both. I love having both in the league. I just think you have, from a marketing standpoint, America's game in the American Conference to kick off college football season, make it the Daytona 500 of college football. I think it could work.
At some point, I'm not saying at some point it might not have to come to that if both teams realize that there's more detriment to playing the game on that date, and their TV partner thinks the same, who pays a lot of money for that game. But ultimately, as we're all finding out, those TV dollars are just, too hard to ignore. Other conferences are making moves in the same vein. And, unfortunately, TV dollars talk. Now, if at some point the TV partner comes to both sides and says, hey, maybe this is a better fit at this time, then, maybe they would discuss that. But, based on the length of that contract right now, I don't think those discussions are going to be had for quite some time, as CBS has just been a tremendous partner for both Army and Navy, obviously, for a long time now.
And Peter, you mentioned before the show, you guys are sitting there with 4 wins right now with 3 games to go playing for bowl eligibility. But as you understand it, you guys need to win the next 2 weeks because it doesn't sound like there's going to be any bowl game waiting around for you guys. I guess it depends on how many bowl eligible teams are out there. Do you know what the situation would be like? Let's say you beat SMU and lose to East Carolina, and then you beat Army to get to 6-6. If there's not enough bowl eligible teams, would a bowl still wait then, or would a 5-7 team go ahead and go in place of you guys?
I would assume a 5-7 goes before us. Well, we all know James Madison would go before us.
They've been completely
right
denied,
now.
Sounds like.
Jacksonville State, Gamecocks had a heck of a year in their first year, moving up as well. So those are the rules. The rules when you go into the season. And this is a pretty cut and dry business. The beauty of athletics, the beauty of competition, there's a winner, there's a loser. It's real cut and dry. Some sports allow you to have ties and things of that nature. Well, in this case, there are no ties. It's about wins and losses. You get what you earn. Unfortunately, right now, we've only earned 4 wins going into this East Carolina game. So it's kind of a product of the way our season has gone. And, as I keep telling everybody, mathematically, you still have a shot. You can't get to 6 without getting to 5. You got to get to 5 first. And if they can somehow win this week, they would get to 5. And then obviously you have a very good SMU team waiting out there in the wings a week from Saturday.
Yeah, it just drives me crazy that you guys could get to 6-6 after that Army game. If things play out that way, and then you might not go to a bowl because of the date the game's played. One more question about big picture stuff, and then we'll focus in on East Carolina Navy. Do you know what happens starting next year? Let's say Navy goes undefeated, or you're a 1-loss football team, and so is Army. Or in this case, it doesn't even matter if it's Army. Let's just say it's you guys. So let's say you're undefeated or a 1-loss football team, and you're playing for the conference championship in that playoff spot. Do you know if you guys would go ahead and get that after the conference championship game? Because you could still lose to Army, which then might not make you the highest ranked Group of 5 champion.
But here's the caveat. I believe the final the final committee rankings are the week before. So if Navy is the highest ranked Group of 5 team the week before,
It doesn't matter. Okay.
then yeah, they by rule they would qualify for that spot. So I hope those are all scenarios I hope we have a chance to discuss at some point. I hope they come to fruition. But again, that's kind of how the landscape of college football has changed here, because these are all things now down the road that all of a sudden merit discussion. But based on when the final committee rankings are, I would imagine if Army or Navy are undefeated at that point and they are the highest rated Group of 5 team, then they would qualify for that spot.
Interesting.
Pete, I had a question regarding, I know how much you've had respect for Coach Mike Houston. He's had a really tough year, being 2-8, as you probably followed from the outside. Obviously, we live it every single day. I just want to get your thoughts, because the fans, I think, have been too hard on Mike Houston, and just want to get your thoughts on that.
Have you seen the offense?
Have you seen our offense? I mean,
one more points than us.
Hey, look, I mean, we're the only team in the country that has started 4 quarterbacks. So,
you've got 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah, we've started 4 different quarterbacks. We've got a couple more that could play if it came down to it. But I mean, look, it is. I mean, our offense has gradually gotten better. That's the great thing. Xavier Arline has brought us some stability. Knock on wood. I mean, we've just had tremendous injuries at the quarterback spot. I mean, the guy that we thought the quarterback was going to be in the spring hadn't been able to go. The other 3 quarterbacks have all gotten hurt at some point. And when that happens, and you just lose development time. And when you lose development time, I mean, you all know this is the most important position in all of professional sports.
Yeah.
Outside of playing tennis and golf, where you're the only person hitting the ball, this is the most important position in all of professional sports and college sports. Right. So when you don't have stability there, we've had kids trying to play hurt, and that's admirable. But when you're trying to play hurt, man, that's a tough go. It's tough enough to play this sport when you're healthy, let alone trying to play hurt. And, X has done a great job for us. Last 6 quarters, I think our offense has looked a lot better. And hopefully we can, keep that going forward. Look, I mean, let's face it. I mean, and I've seen all the stuff with Mike and everything this year. I mean, you can't be the same group that was so gung-ho based on the way the previous year went and the momentum was going. But like every team, if you miss at the quarterback spot, then these are the likely results of what happens, unfortunately. And they just have not had the consistency at that position that a guy that played for 6 years gave you, leading up to that. I think if there were any holdouts on just how much Holt Nailers meant to that program, I think those questions are being answered right now. So, I mean, look, for Mike and any other coach, I mean, look, Coach Niumatalolo, had a tough couple of years. You look at guys that have all won. I mean, Nick Saban went to the NFL and looked like a very average coach. He comes back to college and he's the king of the world. So, everybody has a down year. I mean, the thing to me is for East Carolina, though, it's easy to identify. It's easy to identify where things have gone astray. And let's face it, the transfer portal, your roster every year now, until these rules get cleaned up a little bit. I mean, you have a chance to go shopping at the flea market every year for a new dude. Mm-hmm. You could literally have a new dude every year at quarterback if you chose to go that way, just plucking one out of the portal. And that person's likely an upgrade over what you have when you go shopping for it. So that's how our game is played now. If you don't have solid play at that quarterback spot, then the results are probably going to be subpar. Look how good ECU's played defense the last couple of weeks, and the defense played well enough to be 2-0. Unfortunately, the record's 1-1.
Yeah, no doubt. And defense played well all year, really, even where the scores have got out of hand. It's because they weren't on the field too much. And the quarterback situation is our fans know about our quarterback situation. They're going to need to discuss that with you. We'll discuss your quarterback situation. I mean,
the problem is and we all thought, I think we all thought Mason Garcia had a chance to really be the guy following Holton. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how many people were saying, "Oh, he's not the guy. He's not the guy coming into this season."
I know
right?
somebody who knew it very well who told me he wasn't the guy, but I won't get into that right now. You already talked about him earlier. But I anyway, so let's focus on the Navy quarterback situation. You said there's been a rotating door there, a lot of injuries. You guys put up 31 points against UAB. So talk about what happened last week against the Blazers. Holding them to 6 points was also very impressive. They had a stout offense, a good running game coming into that game. So talk about the performance last week. Obviously, playing on Veterans Day, I would think would mean a lot to the midshipmen. But you putting up 31 points, holding UAB to 6. Talk about that performance last week. Who is playing quarterback for you guys now, and what we expect to see out of Navy's offense this weekend? You guys, for anybody who hadn't watched Navy this year, you guys still do a lot of the triple option stuff, but that is not the identity of Navy football solely like it was at one time.
No, I mean, we've really introduced some new concepts, and we're starting to see those concepts blossom a little bit. Some zone running packages. And we've got, look, I mean, it took us a little while to figure out who our best playmakers were, and we're getting those guys the ball. Xavier Arline's doing a great job at quarterback, settling us down over the last 2 games. And like I said, the last 6 quarters have been pretty good football for us. Our offensive line's been beaten up. We got kids that are being held together with baling wire, but that's who they are. They put the tape on, they go back out there, and they play. And, X has been the calming influence, though. But we've got, I think what happens, and you've seen this, you put the tape on, you look at Alex Teska, Eli Heidenreich, Brandon Chapman, those guys run away from people. Those guys don't get caught by anybody. And I think that shocks defensive backs. Like, I think UAB's people, when they saw those two getting to the edge the other day, they were kind of like, whoa, these guys can really roll. And they've been tremendous. X on the run, 50 yards for a touchdown. Also doing a fabulous job. And I just think it's taken a little while for those new concepts to blend in with what we've, done in the past. And Coach Newberry has spoken about how we still want to have that physical identity, run game first. But we've had receivers running open all year. We just had a lot of inconsistency in hitting them. If we hit some of those plays earlier in the season, the record's different than what it is right now. We're still getting people open, but now we're starting to hit on more of those plays. And I think that's one of the reasons why the offense is taking the jump. Our defense continues to play well. One of those touchdowns last week, obviously, was the Rayon Lane defensive touchdown, 97-yard interception return. Colin Ramos was the defensive player of the week this week in the American Athletic Conference. So our kids have done a marvelous job sticking with it, despite the record being what it was at one point. We gave Memphis everything they can handle, losing by 4 there. So, I mean, we've challenged ourselves against one of the best in the league already. And, we know we can play with them. It's just a matter of finding that consistency and doing it each and every week. And that's the thing that when you have those quarterback injuries and offensive line injuries, those things start to mount up on you because our league is good. I don't care what anybody says. The American is still the best G5 league. I know James Madison's good at the top of their league, but I guarantee if they come into the American, they're going to get a lot more of a fight than they do. I was disappointed. I love Georgia State, love Sean Elliott, but JMU blew them out. I don't know how many teams James Madison's coming into in the American and just rolling roughshod over them. They might still win the games, but they're life and death with an average Old Dominion team. So I still think that the American is by far, in a way, the best G5 league out there on a consistent basis. So, our league is not by any means an easy place. And if you don't have your A game, you're going to lose. It's real simple.
Speaking of which, Pete, off the subject of the game real quick, when you mentioned the conference, do you think we need to expand more than Army to
not really. Not really. Because, here's the thing. What does anybody else bring to the league? Army's a national brand, so they bring something to the league. Who else are you going to get that brings a national brand? Perhaps Air Force, but who else brings that? And I don't see anybody else out there that brings a quote national brand to what we're doing here in the American. So, you know, you want to sell me on somebody, I'll listen. If you want to sell me on somebody else out there in a G5 that wants to come to the American, I'll certainly listen. But I think the Sun Belt's happy where they are. I think the people in the Sun Belt are happy where they are. I think the people in the Mountain West are happy where they're at right now. And, you know, the MAC is what the MAC is. So, you know, again, if you want to sell me on somebody that brings something else to the table, I'll listen to it. I just don't know what anybody else brings in terms of a quote brand or national brand of football.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Oregon State, Washington State does, and you mentioned the Mountain West. So we'll see how that plays out, and do we want to expand that far west? But another thing, this really wouldn't affect Navy, but people have talked about bringing in somebody to offset SMU leaving in other sports, VCU, for example. But my dog wants to participate in the podcast, professional operation.
That's all right. Hey, trust me, my dog makes appearances in a lot of the podcasts. I do too.
So so obviously talking about football from a national brand with Navy, but back to the game. You talked about the offense and the differences. Could you specify more the difference in the offense this year? Obviously, we mentioned keeping some of those triple option tendencies, but throwing the ball a lot more. Tell people what they're going to see from a schematic standpoint from the Navy offense.
I mean, I just think you're going to see us have a little more confidence in throwing the football. You know, I mean, like I said, schematically, we're getting people open, and we've just got to hit them. We got to give Xavier time in the pocket to get back there, allow the routes to develop, and make those throws. You know, we've done, you know, really good things with our wide receivers on crossing routes, running backs on deep routes. So, I mean, like I said, it's taken us a little while to identify our playmakers, but you know, I think everybody's kind of figured out our bread and butter, you know, is with Teska and Heidenreich right now, two kids out of the Pittsburgh area, sophomores who've been very good. And we're such a young football team in a lot of areas. And, you know, I think that's the exciting thing for us right now is we've figured out some of these guys and they're all young. You know, we've even got a couple of young quarterbacks in the pipeline who we're excited about, you know, that, you know, one got hurt. The other one, you know, had to start against Air Force. He's a true freshman. So, you know, I think they're excited about a couple of the young kids that are in the pipeline. They've learned from a couple of veterans like Arline and Ty Levitai this year, who've been incredible leaders in the role that they've been asked by this team. So I think the future is bright for us. And I think we've understood, you know, option football is predicated on outnumbering people. And Army and Navy can't really outnumber people anymore using the option because there's 8 people up the line of scrimmage. I mean, it's just physically impossible to outnumber people. So they've had to introduce some new concepts to what they're doing to take advantage of everybody being up the line of scrimmage. And we've started to do that a little bit more and utilize some of that speed that we have on the team.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know, I think with the evolution of the blocking schemes and the rule changes with the NCAA, it was a necessity Navy did that. And I think it'll be interesting to see going forward with you guys throwing the ball more. And I think from an East Carolina standpoint, our fan base is probably glad that you guys aren't doing exclusively triple option anymore with the lack of success we've had against it.
Well, I mean, you know, we did score 76 and 66 in a couple of games down there in Greenville. But you got to think about it, though. I mean, we've had some elite people, okay? We had some elite people when we were hanging 76 and 66 down there in Greenville. So that helps. When you have elite players like Keenan Reynolds, it makes a huge difference. But, no, I mean, as we have watched East Carolina's defense most of this season, you know, you got people over there, you know, that are legit. I mean, you got players that could go play in other leagues. You got some Power 5 type guys. I mean, Charlotte had Power 5 type guys. Their defense. You want me to go line up with Charlotte's defense or East Carolina's defense? I'll tell you what. USC would love to have either Charlotte or East Carolina's defense right now. I can tell you that because if they had either one of those defensive units, they'd be a better team. Their record would be far better than what it is. So, I think that's the important thing is those kids on the defensive side, no matter what has happened with the inconsistencies on offense, they've stayed together and they play with a hell of a lot of pride out there, each and every week. So you get in a 13-10 game with Tulane, with as good as Tulane has been now over the last 2 years, with one of the best quarterbacks that we've had in the American in a while. That tells you something. Florida Atlantic's been able to score points this year. East Carolina just shut it down last week. We all know how good Tom Herman has been offensively in his time in the American between Houston and Florida Atlantic. So we know what that offense is capable of. And here's ECU holding Tulane to 13 and Florida Atlantic to 7 points. That's big time defense. That's big time defense.
Pete, as far as the defense is concerned, when you talked about for East Carolina, no, Coach Newberry was at Kennesaw State before he came to Navy. Blake Harrell was at Kennesaw State before he came to East Carolina. I'm sure that Coach Newberry has a lot of respect for Blake Harrell.
Oh yeah, there's not no question. Coach talked about that actually earlier this week. So, super amount of respect for the people, over on that side. Coaches know coaches. And they know it's going to be a heck of a battle coming up this week. They know East Carolina's going to be well prepared. And, again, as I said, in our league, I don't care if you're 2-8, 4-6, 9-0. If you don't have your A game, you're going to lose. That's just how good our league is. Even the teams at the bottom this year. Look at how Temple played with us. Temple's a completely different team with E.J. Warner. They're always capable. Now, they may not consistently do it, but when Warner's there, they have a shot to do it. And, we found out the hard way against them. So as he came back from an injury after missing 4 weeks. So, yeah, again, it comes down to if you don't have your A game in our league, you're going to be life and death to get a victory or you're going to take an L. And that's just the reality of playing football in the American Athletic Conference. And I think if anybody thought, and I know, you guys know, I pay attention to all the media down there. I listen to the post-game shows, all that stuff. If you thought these kids had quit on Mike Houston, this defense would be playing the way that it is. So I think those that are trying to, put that narrative out there are trying to talk it into belief and fruition. And I think the players' effort tells me something different. So just
anybody who says we quit, they're not watching the football games.
Right.
There's no doubt.
Kids want to compete, man. Kids want to compete. They don't want to be embarrassed on TV. So
we talk about kids not quitting. This past week, the Pirates had a Frank Beamer, if you will, effort type on special teams, block punt, 5 made field goals. How are the Midshipmen looking on special teams?
Well, we've got the best punter in America. So we have the best punter in America. We have the best gunner in America. So Riley Reithman is definitely a chance to win the Ray Guy Award. And Rayon Lane is the best gunner in America on punts. Nathan Kirkwood has kind of solidified our field goal PAT unit. Evan Warren, our kickoff guy, who boots the ball through the end zone pretty much every time, unless he's told to do something different. Interviewed for a Rhodes Scholar last week. Missed the game because he had to interview for a Rhodes Scholar. So it just goes to show you the importance we put on academics at the Naval Academy. So, if the ball is returnable, Tyler Bradley and Amin Hassan, very capable return guys. And Amin's obviously, real solid in the punt return game. So, Ricky Brown's done a great job as he's the assistant coach, new coach this year, coordinating our special teams. And, from a special team standpoint, I put our units up with just about anybody.
And Pete, can you talk about the obviously, maybe I can in 2 years. I can't wait to come up there to see a game. For the Pirate fans coming up there that have never been to the stadium, can you talk about the game day atmosphere?
Well, obviously, the march on of the Midshipmen, when you watch 4,400 kids, march into the stadium in lockstep in uniform, it's pretty breathtaking to watch that if you've never seen it before. We have flyovers. Our tailgate environment is tremendous, as good as anybody in the American. And as I said, a lot of ECU fans have made that trek. There's always been a lot of purple and gold over in section 31 and 32, for those games. And if you haven't come up, look, come up on Friday. Annapolis is a great place. The game's at 12 o'clock. Heck, you can go down the city dock area. And I think we're going to get, it's going to be gusty. I mean, the wind's going to be gusting around 30 miles an hour on Saturday. So that will be a factor. But, you can go downtown Annapolis, which is literally 2 miles away from the stadium, and enjoy, great scenery, good food, and a great environment with what should be a good weather day in Annapolis on Saturday. That's the advantage of the 12 o'clock kickoff. Plenty of time afterwards to go, enjoy yourself. And more importantly, the game will be over before sunset when the temperature usually drops about 15 degrees this time of year. But, our environment's as good as anybody's in college football, obviously with all the different traditions that we have. So senior day for us, always been a huge day. Before the pandemic, we didn't lose a senior day game, for like 15 years. So, obviously they're hoping to reestablish that tradition and try and start another winning streak and keep it going for a while on senior day.
Pete, you mentioned the weather. I did not know about the 30-mile-per-hour wind gust. That should be interesting for the passing game and the kicking game. I anticipate a lot of running and a lot of good defense this Saturday. It's going to be a hard-hitting, a ugly football game in the best possible way is what I anticipate Saturday in Annapolis, Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you look at the way our defense played last week against a passing attack that averaged 303 a game coming in, and they decided they wanted to line up at the line of scrimmage and play smash mouth football. Interesting game plan from Trent Dilfer. I trust Trent implicitly, though. I mean, he's good offensive mind. I mean, they gambled with a game plan, and it just didn't go well for them. And like I said, Lane's interception was the capper on the way our defense played, this past week. And obviously they're going to have to rise to the occasion. We know how good Green and Harris are as running backs and what they're capable of. And, Flynn, I mean, he at least looked the part. He didn't kill him at the quarterback spot. If your quarterback doesn't kill you and keeps you in the game, then you've got a great chance with the guys like Green and Harris running the football for you. So, I mean, just as we've seen in past years, I mean, I'm just a couple hours away from going to watch Keaton Mitchell play. And I told everybody the moment Eric DeCosta signed him the night after the draft up here, I said, not only is this kid going to make the team, at some point he's going to make an impact on the team. And Keaton has certainly turned into making me a profit on that. He has been explosive the last couple of weeks for the Ravens. And I'm really happy that he's getting the shot that he's getting in Baltimore.
No doubt about it, Pete. It's going to be a great game on Saturday. We're looking forward to it. And certainly one of these days, like I said, maybe 2 years, I can come up there and see a game. I know it'll be great. And you're always, when you guys come to Greenville, you're always welcome with us. And we appreciate your time. You always have been good to us. I think it's been 5 years, a long time you've been with us. So thank you for all the great visits and another one today.
Told you. I tell anybody that listens, if I take Navy out of the equation, East Carolina has the best environment in the American. It's not even close. And, I know the season's not going the way you want it to, but no matter what happens, stick with the kids. Stick with the kids because those kids show up every day, put the pads on, play hard. And I don't expect anything less than a great game from the players coming up this weekend. I think it'll be a heck of a football game between Navy and East Carolina on Saturday. Looking forward to it.
Pete, looking forward to it. Thanks for coming on with us. The first team to 13 wins the game.
You got it. Appreciate it, pal.